It's time to eat.
What are you hungry for?
Sit down and get ready to consume an abundance of fantasy football knowledge from Ross Tucker and Joe Dolan.
Feed me now. I'm starving.
On the Fantasy Feast Eating Podcast.
Yeah, let's eat, baby. It is the Fantasy Feast Eating Podcast. We are, of course, presented by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Most of you know that. Hopefully, a lot of you already check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Monday through Friday, 25 minutes or less. Everything you need to know, what's going on in the NFL from the perspective of a former player. Of course, Monday, we have the College Draft Podcast that we release, which is awesome because we talk about the top prospects, but also make the picks against the spread, especially this time of year with all the bowl games. Even Money Podcast is our NFL betting podcast that is very, very popular. I love this show, mainly because I'm a huge fan of Joe Dolan. I love the energy. I love the passion. I love the information. You can check him out on social media like I do, at FG_Dolan. He's over at fantasypoints.com, where if you ever go over there to get a subscription, it's well worth it. They have more information for less money than their competitors. Like, that's more for less. It's a pretty simple equation. Use the code 23FEAST at fantasypoints.com. Joe, no bye weeks. Let's dive right into it. It's semifinals for people that are in their season-long leagues. We always give a tip of the cap to the folks playing DFS as well. We'll start Thursday night. We got a decent Thursday night game, Joe, which I'm always happy about. It's the Saints and the Rams.
Yeah, playoff implications in this game for both teams. The Rams, though, seem to be going in a different direction than the Saints are going right now. The Rams seem to be really charging forward, while the Saints are kind of spinning their tires, not an exciting team at all. Now, the Saints, I was eliminated in a couple of leagues last week, Ross, because Chris Olave got ruled out right before game time. And I put in Gabe Davis, who, he's been goose egg Gabe all year, but in this one, in the Bills game, and we'll get to that. Not sure it was his fault because Josh Allen threw like 4 passes in that game. Let's talk about the Rams. First and foremost, the Rams are one of those fantasy teams where you just kind of start your guys. Stafford, Nakua, Cup has taken over Nakua right now, but both guys are startable. And then, of course, there might be one player in fantasy football who you trust more than Kyren Williams right now, and that's Christian McCaffrey. Kyren Williams has totaled a ridiculous 111 opportunities in the last 4 weeks since his return from injury. And the Rams actually have a positive matchup by our trench metrics at fantasypoints.com in our data suite on Thursday Night Football. It's our number 1 rush grade of the week. The Saints have given up over 100 non-scramble rushing yards in 3 straight games before shutting down the Giants' offense last week. That doesn't really scare me as it pertains to Kyren Williams. You don't need me to tell you that he's a slam dunk running back 1 on usage alone, but I'm here to tell you that the matchup is also glorious for Kyren Williams with the Rams home favorites against the Saints. He is a league-winning player in every way imaginable.
Wow. Do you feel like this came out of nowhere, Joe, or no?
He was trending that way in the beginning of the season before he got hurt. How much he's been used since he came back, tiny bit of a surprise, because Sean McVay was like, we're going to be a little judicious about how we used him. Well, judicious meant they are going to ride him because he's their best player on offense right now. It's amazing. But Kyren Williams, I can't sing his praises enough.
Okay, how about the Saints on the other side, Joe?
Chris Olave is going to play, it looks like. And if Chris Olave plays, the guys you can play here are Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara. That's it.
Who's been disappointing this year? Juwan Johnson?
Juwan, because Taysom Hill's obviously been injured. Juwan's been disappointing. Rashid Shaheed got off to a hot start and then kind of cooled off. He's been banged up. Derek Carr is the same guy Derek Carr has always been. And it just means this offense is just as mediocre as it can possibly be.
Every week, On the Fantasy Feast podcast, I give you my stud play and value play. I'm going big with Kyren Williams. I'm following what Joe said in terms of the matchup. $7,800 on DraftKings. I'm taking Kyren. And then for the value play, how about Taysom Hill? I think Taysom Hill gets in the end zone. He's only $5,000. I'm going to go with Taysom in that situation. One way or the other, I think he scores a touchdown in this game. Joe, we move on. We got a couple games on Saturday. The Bengals at the Steelers. Got to talk about the Bengals. Doesn't sound like Chase is going to play.
No, it doesn't. And fortunately, T. Higgins, here's another one, the glories of fantasy football. T. Higgins does nothing all year. And then against me in a playoff matchup, he does the Michael Jordan Space Jam thing where he extends his arm 35 yards and gets it across the goal line for that amazing touchdown that he scored. But T. Higgins is obviously a upgrade without Jamar Chase playing in this matchup. And then you look at the status of Chase Brown, who I believe Chase Brown got in a limited practice this week. You're playing Joe Mixon anyway, but yeah, Chase Brown has a sternum injury and got in a limited practice, so he's dinged up. That might be a slight upgrade for Joe Mixon in this matchup against Pittsburgh, a Pittsburgh team, by the way, that is Pittsburgh team that is going in the wrong direction right now, and the season is kind of collapsing on them.
What about Pittsburgh offensively? They got a new quarterback.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph starting on Christmas weekend. The irony is not lost on me. Rearranging the deck chairs, Ross. I mean, this offense doesn't have any consistency. They had the one game where they got the ball to Pat Freiermuth across the middle of the field and then haven't done it since. Najee Harris is dinged up. He's got a knee injury. By the way, on defensively, Minkah Fitzpatrick's hurt, which certainly helps T. Higgins in this matchup. Just a disaster for the Steelers. You know what it is right now. George Pickens is trying to justify his lack of effort on a blocking play. You can't start him. Deontay Johnson's a wide receiver 3. Jaylen Warren, if Najee Harris is out or limited, RB2. Like, it's Pittsburgh's a hard team for me to talk about right now, and they're going in the wrong direction. They're still in the playoff hunt, but they're going in the wrong direction.
What about the direction the Buffalo Bills are going in on the ground with James Cook, utilizing Cook in every way? Speaking of league winners, Cook and the Bills are in L.A. Saturday night to take on the reeling Chargers.
Yeah, so James Cook, the league winner status that I talked about with Kyren Williams is right there with James Cook as well. 221 scrimmage yards in just a throwback game for Buffalo. Joe Brady comes out and says, I wasn't planning on running it that much, but it was working. I feel like there's a lot of offensive coordinators in the league who can learn from that, by the way. How many times do we see a team like the Eagles, for instance, on Monday night, put together a great opening drive and then just completely lose the plot? You know, Joe Brady did a great job in that game. Cook has exploded over the last 3 weeks for 462 yards from scrimmage and 3 touchdowns on 64 touches under Joe Brady. It doesn't matter that his snap rate is low. The snap rate is actually helping keep him fresh. So, you know, Ty Johnson comes in and they put in Latavius Murray at the goal line, but James Cook just gets the football when he's on the field. He's a locked-in RB1 against the Chargers in a game in which the Bills are heavy favorites. Now, if you have Stephon Diggs, I don't know what to tell you. His numbers have collapsed as they've started running the football more. You still have to play Stephon Diggs. I think Josh Allen's going to complete more than 7 passes this week, but still, they've really started to run the ball very well, and it's kind of given them an identity.
What about the Chargers, Joe? What does there even say?
We still have to monitor the status of Keenan Allen. And if Keenan Allen doesn't play, Josh Palmer is in play here. Austin Ekeler looks completely toast. They're trying to get Josh Kelly and Isaiah Spiller the ball more. I think Austin Eckler's benchable this week after what he did last week. The stat lines, they had been kind of approaching disaster, but he was getting it done with receptions and touchdowns. Last week, he has 38 yards from scrimmage on 9 touches. Josh Kelly and Isaiah Spiller getting a bunch of work. It's a disaster for Ekeler. I think he's benchable right now.
Wow. What about some of these Sunday games? We'll start with the Colts at the Falcons.
You know, sometimes us fantasy guys, we want the answers to the test, right? We want to know who's going to get the football. And when we have a player we like and we have a player on our roster who doesn't get the football, we complain about coaching. And sometimes that's valid and sometimes it's not. I am here to tell you it's valid with Arthur Smith. I mean, what? Tyler Algier, and by the way, here's the thing. It was easy to say in week 1, and I think I did say on this program, when Tyler Algier ran for 100 yards in week 1, I'm like, all right, I can't knock Arthur Smith. They won the football game. Well, now Tyler Algier's getting 14, 15 carries, 15 touches. Jonnu Smith's your leading receiver. Drake London's not getting targeted. On the heels of a 170-yard game. And Tyler Algier's the leading rusher. Jonnu Smith's the leading receiver. And Cordero Patterson scoring the only touchdown you have. This guy, I made the comparison, Ross. I don't know if you're a fish guy. I never really got into fish. It wasn't really a band that I got. But Arthur Smith, to me, his offense is a bad jam band. He's trying to show you how clever he is without writing actually a decent song. That's what he's doing right now. That's what he's done, and that's why he's going to lose his job. I think Josine Anderson said there's growing seeds of discontent with him, and there should be, because he's smug and he doesn't put the ball in the hands of the 3 top 10 picks that he's got. You know, it's Christmas season. It's like spending hundreds of dollars on your 18-month-old for Christmas, and the kid plays with the wrapping paper instead of the toys. That's what Arthur Smith is doing right now. He's giving the ball to the wrapping paper and not the toys.
What about the Colts, Joe?
So we have to keep an eye on I don't have anything definitive to say right now about the Colts because Michael Pittman's still in concussion protocol. Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss are both currently questionable. It looks like Zach Moss is going to try to play. It's an arm-shoulder injury. Remember, he had an arm injury that cost him time at the beginning of the season. So that's a problem right now. So Gardner Minshew, we don't know really who he's going to have the ball to throw to, have to throw the ball to. Josh Downs has kind of fallen off. They were throwing to guys like DJ Montgomery and Tyler Goodson last week. So there's a lot of questions that need answered about the Colts right now, and we don't have them as we record this on an early Wednesday morning.
No questions needed in terms of the best place to get tickets, Joe, or in fact, the best place to get a last-minute gift. If you have no idea what to get somebody for a gift, go to the Game Time app. I mean, I'm just looking at the game I'm calling on Monday, Giants-Eagles. You can still get in for $135. You can get pretty darn good seats for $164, $170. And with Game Time app, Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. The key for me is taking the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. You just download the Game Time app, which I've had for a while now, create an account, and use code FEAST for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, so again, create an account and redeem code FEAST for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Joe, it's the Packers at the Panthers.
You know, Jordan Love's playing well. And unfortunately, their receiving core has it's fallen by the wayside. You know, Christian Watson's been injured. Romeo Doubs hasn't been doing a whole lot. But two guys, well, first and foremost, Jaden Reed's injured, so we have to keep an eye on his status because he's been a really good fantasy option. But a guy I want to point out for the Packers, if Jaden Reed can't go, if Christian Watson can't go, very quietly, Dontavion Wicks is putting together a really good rookie season. He had 6 catches for 90 yards last week. He's got over the last few weeks, he's had at least 3 catches in 5 of his last 6 games. He has a season-high 97 yards in this past game. He's only scored 1 touchdown, and that was all the way back in week 2, but it feels like he's starting to build a rapport with Jordan Love. So maybe you have Jamar Chase, and he's injured. Keenan Allen's injured. You're looking for somebody to fill in. I wonder if Dontavion Wicks might be that player for you this week. Also cheap for DFS if you need somebody there.
Carolina, Joe?
Next. Chuba Hubbard is an empty calorie bell cow, Ross. He's getting all the touches and it doesn't matter. I mean, like, they won last week because Arthur Smith handed them the friggin' game by having Desmond Ridder play at all, quite frankly. Hey, I forgot to mention HB Heineke's playing again for the Falcons, if that tickles your pickle, because it doesn't for me. But anyway, Carolina got handed that game. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. If you're relying on Carolina players and you're still alive in your league right now, get a more competitive league next year.
The Browns are at the Texans. Major news, Joe. It sounds like C.J. Stroud's going to be out again.
Yeah, and they went to Case Keenum because I guess they thought Case Keenum gave them the better chance to win, and I don't know how Davis Mills feels about that, but hey, look, Ross, Case Keenum came in and won the football game. Now, we also have to keep an eye on what's the status of Nico Collins, who has the calf injury. So if Case Keenum starts, and I have to imagine he will, why wouldn't he? He won the game last week. If Case Keenum starts, what's his target distribution going to be? Noah Brown is a very much usable wide receiver 3 right now. Case Keenum threw him the ball 11 targets, 8 catches, and a touchdown last week. Noah Brown very much on the RB3 radar. And Devin Singletary, you have to start him at this point. They have finally decided to go away from Dameon Pierce. Devin Singletary was the bell cow in that game, in a competitive game, and he ran all over a good Titans run defense. So Devin Singletary is an RB1 right now.
Man, they got to trade Dameon Pierce in the offseason. That guy was awesome last year.
He's a gap scheme runner, Ross, and they run a zone scheme offense, and that's just the long and the short of it. So our guy Chris Wecht at Fantasy Points actually came up with a wonderful stat. Dameon Pierce is averaging more yards after contact than Devin Singletary. So the style of play that Dameon Pierce showed last year, he still possesses that. Here's the problem. Devin Singletary is averaging about 3 times as many yards before contact as Dameon Pierce. So Devin Singletary's vision in this offense is just better. It just fits better. Dameon Pierce is a certain kind of player, and he doesn't fit in this offense.
What about the Browns on the other side, Joe?
So old Joe Flacco, let me tell you something, Ross. He's making some bad throws. He's turning the ball over. I think Greg Cosell was on your podcast, said Joe would be the first to tell you didn't have a great game last week. But he comes out, and you know what? I'm going to borrow another Greg Cosellism, selective amnesia. Joe throws an interception. I don't care. I'm going out, and I'm going to try to fit the ball into a tight window to David Njoku. I'm going to throw a pass to Amari Cooper on a deep crossing route and drop that ball into the Bermuda Triangle between 3 defenders. Joe Flacco looks like he's having the time of his freaking life right now. He's having a lot of fun, and he's going to be quarterbacking a team in the playoffs. And here's the other thing about the Browns. They have quite correctly decided that they can't run the ball behind an offensive line that's just been decimated by injuries. Jerome Ford has cleared 10 carries just once in his last 4 games, while Flacco's dropped back about 50 times a game in his 3 starts. He still targets Jerome Ford semi-regularly, which keeps Ford on the flex radar. But this is a pass-first offense with Joe Flacco quarterbacking, and against Houston's elite run defense that held Derrick Henry to 9 yards on 16 carries, I expect they will be pass-first in this game as well. So you might want to throw Amari Cooper and David Njoku into your DFS lineups.
If you're feeling good about your fantasy picks, thanks to Joe, but not sure what to eat, make it easy on yourself. Order in on DoorDash. Now you can root for your squad while your food and drinks are on the way. So that means burgers, chips, dip, soda, pizza, wings, so much more delivered straight to your door. Joe, you got to have something to wash it down. I'm a big believer in washing it down with Labatt Blue Light, the best light beer of all time. Drink Labatt Blue Lights with your friends and live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. We move on, Joe. Interesting game in real life and in fantasy. The Lions at the Vikings.
Yeah, Nick Mullins comes out, and look, Nick Mullins did what we wanted him to do. He threw the most hilarious interception of all time, but he threw for 303 yards, and he threw just 7 incompletions in that game. Number one, Nick Mullins got the ball to Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson. That's all we look for because you want to start these guys. Number two, and here's the big story for the Vikings. Ty Chandler gets 23 carries for 132 yards and scores. He also catches 3 passes for 25 yards. And Kevin O'Connell, who's done look, Ross, he's done a phenomenal job this year. But sometimes coaches are just kind of, sometimes they just need to be slapped in the face with a large piece of fish to really figure out what the person who can see the forest through the trees can see. Ty Chandler's been better than Alexander Mattison all year. And Kevin O'Connell is going to comes out now and says, we're going to feature him more. Well, they only gave him the ball 26 times because Alexander Mattison was out. Remember, Ty Chandler's a guy they tried to replace because they traded for Cam Akers earlier this season. And Ty Chandler, the answer to the test was sitting there all the time. Ty Chandler's an RB1 this week because I don't think they're going to give Alexander Mattison anything, if Mattison plays, anything more than a handful of carries to spell Ty Chandler. At least they shouldn't.
The Lions, Joe?
The Lions, well, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's got a bad schematic matchup this week, but you kind of just have to play him. The Lions are easy. They have 5 guys. They're the 49ers. They're the Eagles. They have 5 guys, and you play them all for fantasy, and sometimes the one guy's going to have a bad game. Montgomery, Gibbs, great matchup for those guys. St. Brown, Laporta having the greatest tight end rookie season ever, and Jared Goff. You play them all. These guys are at home, which is good news for Jared Goff. It's good news for everybody. You just start your Lions. And at this point, if you have the Lions, if you played them last week, you're probably alive this week. Excuse me, Detroit's on the road this week, but they're indoors. So that's why I like Jared Goff.
We have to talk about every game, Joe. So we're going to talk about the Commanders and the Jets. Man, there's a lot that could be said here. I don't even know. Yeah.
Well, Breece Hall can't run the football. The Jets can't run the football. Breece Hall is a flex dependent on just catching the ball.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Going into next year, will you feel a lot better about Breece Hall if the Jets upgrade the offensive line, or do you have Breece Hall concerns?
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the player because he's made plays in the passing game. I'm just concerned about the state of this franchise because look, Aaron Rodgers got hurt on the first drive of the season, okay? Like, they could not anticipate that. But then he's going on, he's flapping his gums on television, and he's like, I'm going to be medically cleared. And then very conveniently for Aaron Rodgers, the Jets completely collapsed, so he could say he got medically cleared and doesn't actually have to play. I'll feel better about Breece Hall, yes. This is going to be a big psychology test for me in the offseason because we have to go analyze the vibes. I wonder if they're going to have a coaching change. I don't know for sure. Normally, I'd say guaranteed. But who are they going to hire, and are they going to capitulate to Aaron Rodgers as much as this current coaching staff did? So it's kind of wild what we're going to have to do. The Jets, I got to be honest, like watching Hard Knocks, I thought the vibes in that building were awesome this offseason. And then once Rodgers went down, they shifted to the worst vibes, and then Rodgers is now GM Aaron. Ross, I'm talking in circles right now because this is a question that I am going to have to. We could talk about this on 6 different podcasts this offseason, and we probably will.
What about the Commanders on the other side, Joe?
Well, let's see what Brian Robinson's status is. It didn't seem like he was particularly close to playing against the Rams this past week. Jacoby Brissett comes in and outperforms Sam Howell, who's really started to struggle here. Terry McLaurin has his first 100-yard game of the season. They're going to go back to Howell because, they're just going to give him a shot to, play his way out of this. But it's starting to collapse on Sam Howell, and it's starting to show, these franchises that, there's some guys are promising here. Sam Howell had some promising games, and then the franchise loses its way, and the vibes get bad, and the grind of a long season wears on him, and then his play has started to collapse here. Honestly, the only guy I feel really good about with Washington, if Sam Howell starts, is Curtis Samuel.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, Jacoby Brissett came in, started chucking the ball to McLaurin. There's a little bit of a different deal there. Check him out on social media at FG_Dolan. I am at Ross Tucker NFL. We're at Ross Tucker Pod. Remember, it's the show that's so nice. We do it twice every week during the NFL season. We have 8 more games to get to on episode 2. So you subscribe and all that stuff so you get it right into your podcast app bright and early Thursday morning.
Thanks for tuning in to Fantasy Feast. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcasts on your favorite platform.